What's up guys, it's Rowan here from AOSTV. And when I first learned to drive, I was learning to drive manual. And in the first hour of driving, my dad did something horrible. He took me out onto one of Sydney's busiest roads with 3 lanes both ways. And I was learning manual, so I was freaking out, about getting it into gear, not crashing into people, managing all the cars around me. You know what's really interesting is that the second time I went out to drive, I felt really good, because I'd survived that first horrible, painful experience. And now I'm a really confident driver as a result of that. So, it's sort of interesting because if you think about it, often for exams, we do practice at school, we do study, and then we get into the exam and the exam's hard, it's really challenging, and we sort of freak out and don't do as well and make silly mistakes. Which is the opposite, right, of the experience I had with driving. And, within this is a really important principle that we need to tap into to help you excel more effectively in stressful exam conditions. We need to inverse it. We need to make practice harder than the real thing, the exam. But how? How can you do that? Let's find out in this video. So there's a principle in psychology called flooding. And the basic idea is you want to overexpose yourself to a challenge so that when you get into the real experience, you can breathe easy because you know that you've been there and done it when it was harder and you coped okay. So, example of this is often when people are dealing with phobias, right? They'll overexpose you to the phobia. So a fear of spiders, they'll put you in a room with spiders so that you can overexpose yourself so that the next time you see, a little spider crawling on the ground, you can go, I've got this. Now, you can use this principle for preparing for exams, but it's not just exams in school. I mean, elite athletes use this. And a really great example is Josh Waitzkin. Now, Josh Waitzkin has got the quite unique, the unique achievement of being a dual world champion in chess and martial arts. Right, so intellectual and physical. And one of the things that he found, he tells a story when he was playing chess. He was at the World Championships and he was playing the Russians and he said the Russians would always be quite dirty. And so you'd be playing, and chess is a really high focus, high concentration sort of game. And any little disruption to that focus could mean that you go completely off your game and you lose. And so the Russians would often sit there and they'd be making tapping noises on the table. Just tapping noises, and they'd vary the pace, and it's enough that it would put players off their game and they would lose, and the Russians would just clean up over a dirty technique. And so Josh, he realized that he needed to overexpose himself to this if he was going to be able to get into the World Championships and actually take that distraction and turn it into a superpower and a strength. And so what he did was that when he was practicing for chess at home, he'd sit there and he'd have, someone making huge banging noises, right? Playing the drums so that he could still practice getting in the zone and the sounds around him wouldn't bother him. Now, it meant the next time he went to the World Championships, sure enough, the Russians tried their little tap and trick. And for Josh, it did nothing. And in fact, it was a superpower because he could just focus, and the tapping, it actually distracted his opponent more because they were having to tap and they couldn't understand why is it not working. So how can you use this for your study? Because it does apply really, really powerfully, this principle of flooding, to help you, basically ensure that you get in and you nail your exams. So let's find out how. So how do you make your practice harder than your exams? Well, there's a really simple way, and it's called the 10% time less rule. The 10% time less rule. And basically what it means is that for every single practice paper that you work on, what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself 10% less time. That's right, you're going to try to make it harder. You're going to give yourself more constraints, because by doing so, what it means is you're going to get super comfortable in being able to do your exam papers in less time. So when you get into the exam and you've got a timer ticking down, an unseen question, a person next to you freaking you out, you can go, I've got this. I've got this because I've done it in less than 10% time in the past. So you're going to feel so much more confident, all through this principle of flooding. So in conclusion, I'd love to hear how you go. Leave it in the comments below once you've tried this particular strategy. If you have tried it, let me know how it's gone for you. Leave it in the comments. And of course, hit the subscribe button. We're bringing you videos every single week. So if you hit that little bell, you'll be notified, and I'll see you next week.